Hello and welcome to The Game Changers, the podcast that celebrates trailblazing women in sport. I'm Sue Anstiss, and I'd like to start with a big thank you to our partners Sport England, who support The Game Changers through a National Lottery Award. I'm delighted to say that this, the 13th season of the podcast, is a serialisation of my book, Game On, The Unstoppable Rise of Women's Sport. Chapter 17. It's a Mass Movement. My coach said I run like a girl, and I said if he trained a little harder, he could too. Mia Hamm. Much of this book has focused on elite women's sport, but women have been missing out on sport across all ages and abilities for decades too. From little girls not allowed to join the boys playing football in the school playground, teenage girls unable to play a sport they love because local clubs don't offer girls' teams, through to older women uncomfortable about exercising in public for fear of ridicule and abuse. In every age band, women have less opportunity to participate in sport and enjoy all the amazing benefits it offers. It is shocking to note that by the age of 7, girls are already less active than boys, and this difference widens as they move from childhood into adolescence. Secondary school-age girls are more likely to experience participation barriers than boys, with the biggest drop-off occurring as girls move from primary to secondary schools. This is partly because of disruption to friendship groups, but often also because of their declining body confidence. Over 40% of 14 to 16-year-old girls say their period prevents them from taking part in PE and sport at school. A quarter of girls this age say that a lack of confidence stops them taking part compared to just 9% of boys, according to research from Women in Sport and the Youth Sport Trust. According to the Sport England Active Live survey in 2017-2018, there were 115,400 more primary-aged boys than girls meeting the Chief Medical Officer's guidelines of 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity a day across the week. While this is disappointing, it is great to see that positive change is happening, with much great work driven by the Youth Sport Trust, Women in Sport and Sport England. Starting in schools, there are now lots of initiatives that are highlighting these gender inequalities and making a difference from the ground up. One of these is the Barclays-supported FA Girls Football School Partnerships programme, which aims to give every young girl the opportunity to play football in school by 2024. The scheme sees hundreds of primary schools receiving teacher training, practical resources and equipment, along with the opportunity to engage with positive role models and attend high-profile women's football matches. The Youth Sport Trust, which partners with the FA in delivering the Girls Football School Partnerships, has also made huge strides to change the way PE and sport are taught in primary and secondary schools with their Girls Active programme. Since 2015, 82,000 girls have been involved in the scheme at 727 primary and secondary schools across England and Northern Ireland. Working directly with secondary school girls to help them shape the PE curriculum for their own schools, Girls Active is diversifying the options on offer and in turn making lessons more relevant and attractive. The programme also helps develop skills and confidence. One of my slight concerns about the influential work of the Youth Sport Trust is that in creating campaigns to make physical activity more appealing to schoolgirls, we risk over-feminising physical activity and moving away from traditional sport. So rather than encouraging schools to challenge the long-established societal views that girls should not be sweaty and sporty and strong like the boys, we instead add Zumba to the curriculum and hairdryers to the changing rooms. I put this point to Alison Oliver, CEO at the Youth Sport Trust, who agreed, It was a huge worry to me, actually, at one point, because I came from team sports. I was a team sport player, and I could see us being part of a shift that started to say team sports isn't what girls want and isn't right for girls, and we need to kind of move away from it and find these alternative things. And actually, when you talk to girls, again, the research bears it out. Girls love team sport. They want to play. They just don't want to be in the team that someone's told them they have to be in. They want to work out their own team. As Ali points out, girls are now flooding into team sports traditionally considered to be just for boys. Many international federations for sports, including cricket, football, rugby union, rugby league, and Australian rules football, are working hard to evolve their sports for women, having witnessed a massive influx at grassroots level in recent years. In many sports, females are now the fastest growing demographic, and in some cases already make up more than 30% of the playing population. Once girls leave school, these gender differences continue into adulthood, where 39% of women aged 16 and over are not active enough to enjoy the full health benefits of sport and physical activity, compared to 35% of men. Fortunately, we are seeing positive change with powerful campaigns like This Girl Can. Sport England invests national lottery and government funding to ensure everyone can experience the benefits of sport and physical activity. But for many years, women had been persistently less active than men. This was even though an incredible 75% of women said they would like to do more. They recognised the benefits, but something was stopping them. When Sport England looked at women's barriers to sport and exercise, they all led back to one main factor: the fear of judgment. It was primarily fear that was stopping women from exercising. Women worried about being judged for their appearance during and after exercise, on their ability, if they weren't good enough as a beginner or were seen to be too good, and also if others would judge them for spending too much time exercising rather than prioritising their children, family, or work. It is fascinating to review the very honest reasons given by women, many of which I have felt myself in the past, despite being a confident sportswoman familiar with working out in a gym or pool. What was so refreshing about this research is that for the very first time, it really got to the heart of the issue for women. For decades, I have seen research carried out for the fitness industry that had tried to identify why women didn't exercise and join gyms, with the reasons most frequently cited being lack of time, lack of money, or family commitments. These slightly superficial responses never recognise the authentic reasons in the way that the new qualitative research from Sport England did. Women voiced very honest and personal concerns about their appearance. They were worried about being sweaty, having a red face, not looking like they usually do, no makeup, having to wear tight clothing, how their bodies look during exercise, jiggling and wobbling, not appearing feminine or developing too many muscles. Women were also concerned about having to get changed in front of other women and having their bodies on display in changing rooms and showers. Getting things wrong was also a big concern. Would they wear the wrong clothing or kit, not know the rules, or bring the wrong equipment? Would they not be fit enough, or not good enough, or not serious enough to play sport with other women and therefore hold others back? Others were concerned they would be seen as too competitive. Having considered all these barriers, the main goal of This Girl Can was to help free women from the judgments that held them back. They launched with a simple but very powerful manifesto that resonated with millions of women who had previously felt distanced from sport and exercise because of how it had been portrayed in the past. Women come in all shapes and sizes and all levels of ability. It doesn't matter if you're rubbish or an expert. The brilliant thing is you're a woman and you're doing something. Helping women to realise they were not alone was at the very foundation of this powerful campaign. Huge spending went into ensuring This Girl Can had enormous reach, with everything from the creation of content for short films, billboards and apps, extensive advertising and public relations across TV, print and cinema, and plenty of engagement on social media. It was a brave decision by the Sport England team to invest so much in this way, something I'd never witnessed before in my lifetime, but it was necessary to completely normalise the messages and reach the mass of everyday women. An extraordinary 70% of women aged 14 to 40 said they felt motivated by This Girl Can, which had an incredible reach and went on to win many awards. The real success of the campaign was that since its launch in 2015, it has persuaded nearly 3 million women to get more active, trying a new type of activity or increasing the amount of time spent exercising. The number of women playing sport and getting active once a week, every week, also increased by 250,000, while men's activity levels remain the same, so that gender gap has been substantially narrowed. The next phase of the campaign broadened the target audience slightly to reach women aged 41 to 60. But Sport England still saw less engagement with women with lower incomes and from some specific ethnic groups, the same groups that are also less likely to be active. Significantly more Black and South Asian women don't meet weekly guidelines compared to white women, and almost half of lower income women don't meet the recommended physical activity guidelines compared to a third of women with higher incomes. Research showed that, along with the fear of judgment, there were more practical challenges faced by these women, including lack of time, feeling tired, or not having the money to afford gym memberships. They liked the campaign, but didn't think the women faced the same challenges as them. The final phase of the campaign has therefore addressed the stark inequalities in exercise levels between different groups of women. It encouraged these women to overcome the social, cultural, and economic barriers that were stopping them from having the confidence to begin regular exercise. The new Fit Got Real campaign showed real women of different ages and ethnicities doing exercise in their own way, running around a park, pushing a baby in a pram, hula hooping at home, and learning how to swim via YouTube. I was lucky enough to be a guest at the launch of the Fit Got Real campaign in 2019, but felt a little disappointed when the new advert didn't give me goosebumps in the way the first one had 5 years before. It took a moment for the penny to drop. I wasn't in the target audience for this iteration, so it was probably okay. In the US, it was Title IX that had the biggest impact in getting more young women into sport. The conversion from a nation that had told its young women sport is not for you to what we see today has been extraordinary, with a huge gender transformation in sports and millions of girls flooding into sports such as football and basketball. Also fueling this dramatic increase in women taking part in more sport and physical activity across the world over the past 30 years has been the development of women-only events. Sports bodies like USA Triathlon have seen a massive growth in female membership. They say this growth is due to society's acceptance of active women, women feeling more comfortable living an active lifestyle, the growth of women-only events like the Danskin and Iron Girl series, and races focusing on charity involvement and fundraising. Whereas running clubs and events were once male-dominated, today it's women who make up over 60% of race entries according to Running USA's national survey. Positive impact from popular women-only events has been seen in studies from New Zealand, where researchers looked at how event participation affected long-term physical activity and found that even those who were less active before the event continued to rate themselves as active 6 months after the event. Dr. Brianna L. Newland's research with event directors of women-only events across the USA found 4 overarching themes that will be universal across the world. 1. Intimidation factor. All the event directors said that they started hosting women-only events because they found women were intimidated by the sport itself or by the thought of competing alongside men. Women, many of whom were returning after having children or many years away from sport, said they were scared to know what to do or how to train for the sport, but excited to get involved. Making the events entry-level to start with and providing lots of reassurance and guidance were key to overcoming this. 2. Social community. The event directors had all witnessed an increased interest in women-only training groups and wanted to translate this interest to events. The goal of the events was generally to reduce anxiety, mitigate the barriers, and create safe, fun environments. Women also gravitated towards the women-only merchandise because wearing it made them feel part of the club or community. 3. Advocacy. Advocacy was shown in 2 ways by the women: personal advocacy and philanthropy. Race directors witnessed support and encouragement amongst the women, with women at the start line giving last-minute advice and pep talks or sharing a laugh together. They said it was very different from the atmosphere of mixed events, something I have witnessed myself attending women's triathlon and running events. It resonated with me personally, as I had been surprised but delighted in my early triathlons to see more experienced female triathletes happily sharing advice on transition setup with newbies, showing us how to rack our bikes properly or offering talc to put in our running shoes. I went on to do the same as my experience in the sport grew. The other area was around advocacy for health and wellness through charity support, with women more likely than men to want to raise funds to help others as part of the events. 4. Promotion. The final theme was around how women-only events should be promoted. Everyone agreed that messaging should show that the event was a safe space in which women would be introduced to sport in a friendly, welcoming way that wasn't intimidating. It was important to let women know there was a community feel with opportunities for social interaction and that they could support each other, their own health and well-being. Other noteworthy elements were a recognition that women-only events were not about running events the same old way, minus the men. They provided the opportunity for race directors to rethink the setup of sporting events, with alternative marketing, a different, fun, inclusive atmosphere, and a focus on participation rather than podiums. And finally, a move away from the pink or princess approach, which, while popular in the past, many felt was now seen as stereotyping and misogynistic and potentially alienating women of colour. We have seen the proliferation of women-only charity events in the UK, with one of the first, Race for Life, starting 25 years ago. Since that first race in Battersea in 1994, where 750 participants raised £48,000, Race for Life has grown into a series of hundreds of events across the country, raising nearly £500 million towards beating cancer. Around the same time, in 1996, Nina Barra and 13 brave women decided to power walk the New York City Marathon in decorated bras and raise £25,000 for the charity that today is Breast Cancer Now. In 1998, Nina organised the first moonwalk, which took place before the London Marathon And since that time, the charity has encouraged over 450,000 people to take on a walking challenge and raise more than £100 million for breast cancer causes. In a similar vein, I loved working with Women vs Cancer's Ride the Night, an event which sees thousands of women cycling through the centre of London, raising money for 3 charities: Ovarian Cancer Action, Breast Cancer Now, and Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust. The joy and camaraderie of the event was incredibly inspiring, with many stories of women encouraged back onto their bikes for the first time in years to take part in the challenge. In the UK, the flood of women into sport and activity has been especially apparent in running, where England athletics initiatives including This Girl Can Run and Run Together have seen hundreds of female running groups created across the country. We've also seen the emergence of powerful women-only running communities, such as This Mum Runs, with its online community of over 100,000 women, enjoying 500 free runs a month within 60 communities, and Run Mummy Run, with a Facebook group of 65,000. CrossFit has transformed the perception of women in the fitness arena, with no more pink weights or high-rep, low-weight female workouts. In the CrossFit box, it's the same exercises for everyone. In fact, since its launch in 2000, over 50% of CrossFit participants globally are women. Finally, where weight training was classed as primarily a male activity when I grew up, Arnold Schwarzenegger in pumping iron was a family favourite in our house in 1977. Millions of strong, confident women are now flocking to this space. Personally, I've seen my own participation in sport change over the decades and as I've moved into middle age and experienced all the joys of menopause. Sport for me today means joining great friends for year-round open water swimming sessions at Bray Lake, along with indoor rowing, bike rides and gym sessions. I am conscious that older women can be neglected in the drive to get younger women and girls active. It is an important demographic though, especially as people are living and working longer, and the cost of caring for the elderly is becoming such a burden. While women make up the largest proportion of the older population, they are less likely than men to take part in physical activity and rank lower on measures such as aerobic and muscle strengthening activity. It's an age group that could massively benefit from sport in terms of the physical and mental benefits, but many women in this generation haven't experienced a grounding in sport, so are scared to start, feeling unfamiliar with the rules and regulations. Research shows that a third of British women say they are less active while experiencing the symptoms of menopause, but 71% of those experiencing menopause want to be more active. National governing bodies of sport have done a great job in this space in the past decade, with initiatives like Back to Netball, Back to Hockey and Walking Football attracting women who thought their sporting days were behind them. I played netball regularly until I was 46 and then stopped when I took up triathlon. I've never gone back, but many of my friends and former teammates are still playing competitively now in their mid to late 50s and will no doubt continue to do so. I'm excited that walking netball is now an option for me to come back to, and perhaps we can keep playing into our 70s. The last decade has also seen massive growth in masters events for swimming, athletics and triathlon, along with new walking formats. A wonderful example of a club that has done a great deal to encourage older women into sport is the multi-award-winning Crawley Old Girls, or COGS. Carol Bates had always wanted to play football. She'd spent years watching from the sidelines, first as a child, watching her dad, and then her 2 sons, and in the 1990s she had also managed a team of men in the Redhill and District League. Like me, and most women growing up in the 70s, Carol hadn't been able to play the sport and so joined, in her own words, the generation of women that football missed. In February 2015, Carol responded to a tweet from Crawley Town Community Foundation about a girls' football session. She fancied the idea of a kickabout with other women, but was disappointed to find the maximum age was 25. In an exchange of friendly tweets with the CTFC, Carol suggested that if she could find enough women to start a new session, perhaps they could set up something for more mature women. The sessions, promoted as no experience necessary, come and have some fun, launched with an hour a week for 10 weeks and were attended by 10 women. Since that time, COGS has grown into a hugely successful club, winning many awards and in the process inspiring the creation of hundreds more places for older women to play across the UK. When we entered the FA People's Cup that first year, there were just 4 teams in the country for over 35s, says Carol. By 2019, there were 62 teams in that category, along with more than 15 walking football teams too. The impact of more older women playing the game also means more women are now watching football and want to get involved as coaches and officials. Carol says the FA have been hugely supportive as the category of women's recreational football has exploded, with 460,000 more women aged 25 plus playing football after the 2019 World Cup than ever before, the biggest increase of any age group. It's become so popular that in 2020, Sport England awarded £1 million of national lottery funding across the 9 cities hosting the UEFA European Women's Championship in 2022. Part of this will be used to create a local recreational women's football offer so that more women, like Carol, will finally have the opportunity to enjoy that kickabout. Thank you so much for listening to the serialisation of my book Game On, The Unstoppable Rise of Women's Sport. If you'd like a copy, it's available in hardback and paperback in all good bookshops and online. The Game Changers podcast is free to listen to on all podcast platforms. Head over to fearlesswomen.co.uk to find out more about all of the incredible game changers I've spoken to in previous series. There are over 100 of them, including elite athletes, journalists, coaches, scientists, broadcasters and CEOs. As well as listening to all the episodes on the website, you can find out more about the Women's Sport Collective, a free, inclusive network for all women working in sport. And you can register for the Fearless Women newsletter, a weekly review of the global developments in women's sport. Do come and say hello on social media, where you'll find me on LinkedIn, Instagram and Twitter at Sue Anstiss. Finally, if you've enjoyed the podcast, I'd be so grateful if you could do 2 things. Firstly, if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I'd really appreciate it. And secondly, if there's anyone in your life, at home or at work, who you think might enjoy the podcast, please do let them know about it and help us spread the word about women's sport and the stories of these incredible game changers.